Hey everyone, Tetris 99 has announced the new Maximus Cup. It's like their first official competition, and the top 999 players are going to get about $9 to $10 in credit for the Nintendo Store, which may not seem like much, but overall, this might be something interesting for you guys to compete in. Now, the format is a little bit unforgiving as it counts whether or not you win. So if you get second place or worse, it doesn't really help you out. You have to get first place. So I want to make this video just to help you guys out and give you guys help to how to maximize the chances of you winning. And we're going to break the game into three phases. We're going to go into talking about what you should be doing in the beginning of the game, the middle of the game, and the end game. So let's go ahead and get started with the early game. And one common mistake I see is people breaking too early and it not being an influential break. And what I mean is because there's pretty low pressure in the beginning of the game, and what I mean by this is that the game isn't really going fast, the blocks aren't really blocking fast, and chances are people aren't going to be heavily targeting you with large combos. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is as soon as they see like a T-spin double or they have 4 lines set for a Tetris, they immediately break. But I really advise not really doing that on the first go. And the reason is because it doesn't really accomplish anything. And the goal of the game, especially in the beginning, is that if not a lot of people are targeting you, then you should be building up your whole map so that you can combo into something large that could potentially get you some KOs on other players. So chances are when you're in the very early stages of a game, if you just break one Tetris and send 4 lines over to your opponent, it's not really going to do much. So what I advise is, let's say you just only know how to do Tetrises, you don't know how to do the combos or the 4 wide or the T-spin doubles and triples, is you build extra high and you save your line pieces, and so that you can do a really bursty back-to-back-to-back Tetris where you send 3 Tetrises within a short burst onto one person and you KO them. Or you have a high chance of KOing them, because sending about 14 to 15 lines of damage to one person is going to have a higher probability of taking them down than just sending 4 lines in the early parts of the game. So build up your stacks, and what I like to do here is use the KO function as my targeting tool, and from there. You want to try to see if you can accumulate badges. And if you do get attacked, what is your insurance plan is to always store a piece that can always break the line. The timing window of incoming line is very generous, so it'll turn from yellow to red to flashing red in 2.5 seconds. If you're building really fast, you can cycle through a good 3 to 5 pieces and not really have to worry about it. So don't really be too nervous if somebody attacks you is the most important thing, and build up to larger combos so that you can get badges that will help you move towards the middle of the game. So now we're in the middle of the game, and this is where we go into the second phase, and this is where it can get a little bit tricky because the game situations can vary widely. And by that I mean there are certain mid-game scenarios where you're at 50 people left and you cruise into the final 10 and you accumulate some easy KOs, and there are other games where 2 to 3 people just attack you and they send you a ton of lines and you just feel like you can't really defend yourself. So there are 2 ways I handle the middle of the game. So if I don't feel like I have much pressure and I see other boards are near death, this is where I send quick Tetrises to people that are about to die. And I use the KO and I refresh the KO button every time to make sure that I'm targeting a person that's about to die. And I try to snag as many badges as I can so that I can get to that 75% or even 100% damage bonus, which is very important if you want to win the end game. If you are relatively, in a good spot and you see a lot of people near death, which tends to happen when you hit the 4 to 5 minute mark and you're at about 50 people left, you can snipe some kills and accumulate a lot of badges. Now, if you are worried about getting targeted and you want to play this part a little bit more conservative, then what you can do is I think you just build a little bit higher. And the one mistake that people make is that they immediately break lines the moment they can. And so if they have 4 lines, then they immediately break. But the issue with that is that leaves you very defenseless. And if all of a sudden 15 lines come your way, then you have nothing to defend yourself with and you end up losing. So to protect yourself, what I always recommend is that you have a way of clearing blocks very quickly and canceling lines. So the easiest way to do this is, if you are a standard Tetris player looking for 4 line clears, is you build at least I don't know, anywhere from 8 to 12 lines high, and you keep your stack clean, and you always keep a line piece in your reserves. And then the moment you see these large attacks coming in, then you can very quickly swap out and cancel out that damage and just keep the momentum going, so that when you get attacked, you put a line piece, and then you continue building quickly. You get to your next line piece, and if you get attacked again, then you use it. Or you can put the line piece in your hold if you aren't getting pressured anymore, and you just maintain an extra buffer to help you survive. And if you lose that buffer and you're mid-screen and you don't have a line piece that you can access, then that can put you in a really dangerous spot. So what I always recommend is that you always have a good way of clearing lines that can cancel out attacks. And this will hopefully get you to the end game. Now, the end game can get really complicated because it's really frantic and fast paced, and especially when you hit the final 10, you hear that music, it can get really nerve wracking, and the pieces move really fast. So, here's some helpful advice that I can really give you. It can be really tricky to play at fast speeds, and the other factor that you have to consider is that lines send pretty much right away, whereas in the beginning of the game, it goes from yellow to red to flashing red. In the end game, it goes from red to flashing red really quick, so you don't really have much time to respond. So here's what I like to do. If I feel a lot of pressure on me, then I'm always looking to try to create reserves where I always have a line piece that can break something nice. But sometimes you may not have that line piece, so you might need to use an L or J piece that can clear 2 to 3 lines when you need it to happen. So you still want to make a really good use of your whole piece and always have lines in reserve that you can break to cancel out large damaging attacks. And it's especially damaging in the late game because usually there's going to be a couple people with 100% badge strength, meaning that one Tetris is going to send 8 lines to you, or they might even do a devastating combo that sends 12 to 15. So you need to be really prepared for those kind of attacks and always be ready and build fast enough that you can overcome these onslaughts. Now, what I also recommend is, and this is what's really tricky, is you do a little bit of problem solving, and single line clears actually are really useful here. So if you're ever in a place where you're about to die, but you always have to ask yourself, can I drop a piece that can clear at least one line? Because unlike other Tetris battle games, as long as you're clearing a line with your piece, then the garbage that's being sent to you gets delayed. So there are many situations where I'm about to die, and I just go, if I look at the next 2 to 3 pieces in my whole piece, is there a combination that works that can save me and not allow me to die? And this works twofold, because if you are constantly clearing lines, it lowers your field. It also stalls and reduces the damage given to you. So sometimes you can get a 12, or you can get 12 lines your way, but because you did the right combination of single and double line clears with your next 4 pieces, you outright cancel the attack and you keep the game going. That can be a little bit tricky, and it requires you to think of little optimizations. And what I suggest, if you're not really good at this, is to just record yourself and watch a video where you die in these kind of heated situations, and you just ask yourself, was there a different combination or a different way you could have oriented the pieces to live in the game? And so if I feel like someone's going to die here and I can put pressure on them, then I'm going to KO them. But in general, you just want to have good building habits. And the one last suggestion I can make here is build like a pyramid. And this is something I always bring up in my streams. So you always want to build the middle the highest. And it gives you a little bit more time to think if it's not really something you're used to in terms of how fast you have to think and react to dropping pieces. I know that can be really hard. So why building in the middle is really advantageous is because of how fast the gravity is. You allow the piece to drop in the middle, and then you can have time to slide it to the left or slide it to the right before it needs to lock in place. But if you build so that the middle is the lowest, then it's going to be really hard to reach the crevices that you need to on the sides. So building middle helps you get the flexibility you need to get the pieces where you want. And so that's the final tip I can give you. So in recap, there are 3 phases to the game. In the beginning, what I recommend the most is you learn larger combos and you don't immediately break. because you want to KO players and get their badges. Something small like a single Tetris clear is not going to do that much damage. It's not really going to get that many kills, but something that's larger, like even like a back-to-back-to-back Tetris, which can send a lot of lines, or even learning a 2-wide, 3-wide, or 4-wide, will send a lot more lines, anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40 lines, and that's going to get you a lot more KOs early in the badges you need. In the middle of the game, learn to understand the tempo of the game and the rhythm of whether or not people are putting pressure on you, or if there are a lot of people dying, and identify whether you need to build reserves to protect yourself, or if you can play aggressive so that you can take other people's badges. And in the end game, build the pyramid and make sure that you are thinking of optimal ways to clear single lines if you're in a position where you feel like you're going to die. This part takes a lot of practice. It could be a little bit frustrating, but you will get there. And overall, I wish you guys best of luck in the cup this weekend. Hope that there are many victory royales for you all.